name is Jason JROCK Houston, and you're listening to Chaotic Riffs Magazine. We can be found on the web at www.chaoticriffs.com. It's my great pleasure to be speaking with guitarist Lou Dibello today. How are you doing today, Lou?
Good. It's Lou Dibello.
Dibello, okay. Thanks for correcting that. Lou, you're getting ready to. Is the new album Heatwave? Has it officially been released yet, or you getting ready to release it?
It's released, yeah, and it's just been out for a little over a month, not quite 2 months here.
Okay.
And available online and from my website directly and so forth.
And can people get actual physical copies as well as digital copies?
Yes, yeah. There's a real nice, hard copy CD, some nice graphics and stuff. Yeah, so it looks real good.
That's great. Now I understand this is your fourth solo CD, and I understand the thing with Heatwave is that you got a total of 8 tracks, and 4 of them are instrumental tracks, and you decide to do 4 vocal tracks. Now I was curious, do you do the vocals, or do you have a singer handle the beat?
No, the vocalist is Carsten Lizard Schultz from Germany.
Okay.
And he's done a lot of work in Europe. I think a couple bands that he did some records with over there were like Evidence One and another band called Dead End Heroes. And then he's done a whole lot of session work and writing with other bands. And so I was real fortunate to get hooked up with him, and it turned into a really great working relationship.
And so you said he's quite well known in Europe now. Was he somebody that you had personally known, or did you just reach out to him to see if he'd be interested in recording this?
That's kind of a funny story, and I'll give you the relatively condensed version.
Okay.
A lot of things about the way this CD and the specifics came together were kind of serendipitous one way or the other. So there was a guitarist years ago that I studied with when I was in Los Angeles named Ian Hersey, and I kept in touch with him very occasionally over the years. I'd shoot him an email or look up his website or whatever. And so I guess it would be spring of 2016 last year, I hadn't actually looked him up on Facebook, and so I searched his Facebook page, and I got a message back that said, "We're sorry to tell you that Ian passed away."
Oh, wow.
And
how sad is
so,
that?
of course, I was sorry to hear that, and then I was asking, well, who's, answering this message and whatnot. Well, it turns out that it was Carsten, and turns out that Carsten had done some work with Ian, all this unbeknownst to me,
Wow.
So I started, chatting with Carsten, and so, he says that he's a singer, and he did some stuff with Ian, and I think I looked up something of his on YouTube, and I was real impressed with his voice, and I was like, hey, let me send you some stuff that I recorded and see what you think. And so at the time, it was all just kind of, just being kind of doing a little networking or whatever. Well, then he turned out really to like my stuff, and then we started talking about maybe doing something. And I was originally only thinking I might have 1 or 2 vocal tunes, and maybe I would do one with him and one with somebody else or whatever. But as soon as we actually started kind of working on stuff, and I heard what he was doing with my stuff, I was all about it. And I've written other vocal tunes in the past, and even recorded some years ago that were kind of in this vein and with that kind of higher range, but mostly around here, I've never been able to get hooked up with anybody that could really sing like that, so I mostly focused on the instrumental stuff. But we'll be doing more stuff going forward with vocals for sure.
Well, that's amazing. Now, it's kind of sad about your friend Ian, but did you kind of feel, even once you learned that he had passed on, that maybe Ian's kind of reaching out to me, or, trying to...
Well, he was one of the guys, because this was when I was at Musicians Institute in Los Angeles.
Oh, wow.
And Ian was one of the main guys that, that I kind of really looked up to, and when you're out there, one of the things that they do is they set you up with what they call your private instructor. And he was like my guy that I would go see and talk about classwork and other stuff like that. And like I said, I kind of looked him up from time to time over the years and whatnot. And so unfortunate that he's not with us, but maybe he was looking out for me there.
Yeah, there you go. Now, Who were the guys, Lou, that kind of influenced you? You know, your guitar heroes growing up.
You know, for me, the first rock player for me that I was, you know, really, you know, sort of turned on by, and that really kind of made a light bulb go off in my head was for sure Jimi Hendrix.
Wow.
I listened to Jimi Hendrix when I was a very little kid. My parents had especially now as I look back in hindsight, my parents had an extremely eclectic record collection, you know. And so by the time I was 7 or 8 years old, I was literally listening to records all the time, and I was listening to everything from you know, the Beatles and the Turtles to, you know, Hendrix and jazz records and Frank Zappa and Brothers of Invention and everything. And so I had heard Hendrix when I was real young, and I remember probably when I was about 7 or 8 years old, and I knew that he, you know, was dead and that I would never be able to see him. And I remember, you know, like kind of being sort of bummed out even as a kid. Like, wow, Jimi Hendrix is dead. I'll never be able to like see him play live, you know. And then later, when I actually got closer to the point when I was going to begin playing guitar and I was a teenager, I saw a documentary, you know, film about him, and that was really the first time, except maybe a clip of Woodstock or something, that I'd ever really seen him play. And you know, the first time I saw that movie, I was just completely blown away, and began watching that movie whenever I could, and you know, got more heavily into the catalog of his albums, and got into a lot of the stuff that was released posthumously. Where he's kind of just like in the studio jamming and everything, and so I really got into that. And then you know, what I do now doesn't really sound like Hendrix, of course. Although there was a point where I had a little band that was pretty Hendrixy, and I was writing stuff that was kind of purposely in that vein, you know, 20 years ago or whatever. But then, as far as a more you know, at least compared to Hendrix, you know, a more sort of modern rock, or you know, an update from there, the guys that really had the biggest impact on me were for sure Michael Schenker and Uli Roth.
Wow.
And you know, I mean, I just devoured all the Scorpion stuff, and I remember when Michael Schenker's first album came out, and I was a real young man, but you know, I was like, oh, you know, awesome, the solo album from Michael Schenker, you know. And so yeah, those would be sort of the main influences. And then apart from rock players, an actual real important influence on my playing is my uncle, who is to this day a world-class jazz guitar player. And when I was 6, 7, 8 years old, and I wasn't even thinking about playing guitar then, I had piano and sax when I was, you know, 10 to 13 or so, you know. But even before I played an instrument, I would sit and watch my uncle play. And even then, I mean, he would just play flawlessly, you know. He would like put on George Benson albums and just like flow right along with the whole album, you know. And so my whole experience of guitar playing, you know, in person was like sitting with him in a room playing flawlessly, you know. So I kind of had that. I wasn't aware at the time what it was doing to me, but you know, it gave me the perception that when the guitar is played, it's played well, you know.
And now let me ask you, since your uncle was such a major influence on you, did he at all teach you to play guitar, or did he take lessons from other people?
When I was coming up playing guitar, you know, I did learn a few specific things from my uncle, and then I had not real extensive lessons, but some lessons with a couple different teachers over, you know, a few years or whatever. And then when I did go to Musicians Institute, that was, of course, a little bit more formal training, and in between going out there and whatever high school age, you know, I had a couple music theory classes or whatever. So, you know, little by little, I kind of got some fairly formal training one way or the other, but not really right out of the box with guitar.
And talk a little bit about the musical institute. I mean, how did you how does one get into there? Like, do you get a scholarship? Does somebody, get you help you get in?
At the time, Musicians Institute in Los Angeles, which is comprised of, GIT.
Yeah,
they
yeah.
have, all the different, percussion and bass and keyboard and vocal programs. When I was going, they were just starting to expand, and what I did was the 1-year intense program, which ended up being more or less like a 2-year associate's degree, although it wasn't called that, but it's covered that. Now they offer, I believe they offer a full 4-year program as well as 1- and 2-year programs. And at the time, you had to send in some audition stuff and whatnot, but I mean, they weren't, super critical. I was not a really advanced player, but I was definitely not a novice when I went there. And there were definitely guys that were much less experienced than me, as well as some that were a lot further along. And what I found both for myself and seeing what other people were doing was basically the better you were when you got there, the more you could get out of it.
Yeah, the reason I ask is I've heard a lot of musicians that have gone on to great success start out at the Musical Institute, and a lot of them, like I said, that's where they get their start, and a lot of people go on to have their own careers. Now, when you're at the Musical Institute, do they it's more like a school-based thing where they're teaching you theory, or do you get to, while you're there, like work and develop your own music?
It was definitely geared toward, more than, say, like Berkeley and Boston, which is a much more traditional, full-on academic program. The approach at Musicians Institute was always from the standpoint of training people as professional musicians. So, there was a lot of theory and formal kind of stuff like that. But it was presented in a way and also alongside opportunities that, maybe you did a more hands-on playing. Maybe they sort of particularly provide more style. Like for me, it was real easy to play jazz charts in one class, and then you'd be doing hard rock in another class, and maybe you would have a theory. Those would be like what they called a playing workshop, where you would actually do real playing, and then there was more sort of classroom stuff. So yeah, it was really oriented towards getting your skills together to make a living, playing, doing studio work, teaching, whatever, which is of course all the kind of stuff that I've been doing myself, as opposed to like a more academic-based program where they gear you up to be able to teach music at another college,
Yeah, now I would imagine, Lou, that, going there's a great opportunity, but now, did you ever have, like, record companies or bands coming to scout out the different musicians there? Like, did you have opportunities come your way as far as people would come out and scout musicians?
Yeah, for sure, and, I remember there was one guy that was, sort of in some of my classes that, the big deal at the time was, he auditioned for Dio, out there, while we were, during the school year, he had an opportunity to do that. And then actually I was in several classes, I was just telling somebody else this earlier, with, Russ Bishop, Satchel from Steel Panther.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah.
And, he's a few years younger than me, and so he was only 17 or maybe 18. And, I mean, he was just, totally shredding like crazy back then, There was another guy that was in my class that, played in Alice Cooper's band. So, yeah, there was a lot of guys that either were doing stuff, maybe right around then or shortly thereafter.
Wow.
So yeah, it was real active, and then of course some more jazz and fusiony type guys as well,
Yeah, now you talk about being able to play different typps of music, which I would think would help not only in getting different types of gigs, but would also make you a more rounded musician. I mean, typically somebody would put on like your album Heatwave, and they'd say, okay, this is a guy that's into hard rock, metal, guitar type music. But I think it's again, it makes you for a more rounded musician that you can play different styles as opposed to just doing one, being pigeonholed.
Yeah, and the stuff on Heatwave is all pretty straight ahead hard rock. There's been some other stuff that I've recorded, like on the Axeman Cometh, there's a tune called Caribbean Cruise, and on my first album, Pile Up, there's a tune called Late Night Rendezvous, and both of those are not really a hard rock sound at all. I mean, it's, rock, electric guitar, or whatever, but those have kind of a different feel. And then, of course, I've played, tons of cover band situations over the years, and still play a lot of cover gigs, and so I've played everything from country and pop to classic rock and Metallica and whatever, and of course that's great for me because I pick up the nuances of different guys all the time, and teaching a lot as I do. I'm always learning different songs.
Okay.
Right now I have a little duo that we do that's called the Live Jukebox Show, and we play over 400 songs by request.
Oh, and how can people catch that? Is that an internet thing, or how can people find out about that?
My website, loudibello.com, doesn't always have all the dates updated, but for sure my Facebook artist page, which is just Lou Dibello Guitar.
Oh, wow.
And, that's all mostly regional here in downstate Illinois, as far as the cover gigs go and whatnot. But, years ago I played like in a Chicago-style blues band. There was a house band at this blues club, So yeah, I'm pretty comfortable in a lot of different styles, although, what I really like to write and what I'm, just as comfortable sort of playing off the top of my head is definitely more in the hard rock, heavy metal vein.
That's your forte. Now, let me ask, I got to be real honest with you, Lou. Until your publicist, sent me a press release and we set up an interview, I'd never heard of you. Now, I will say this, he sent me I went and checked out the video for a single, and I was really impressed with that. And even though I know nothing about you before, I tell you, I became an instant fan. I can honestly say that. And so my next question is, for people that have, want to check out your other solo releases, can people still purchase those? Are they out of print?
The Axeman Cometh is definitely available, at least through CD Baby, and I think Amazon. Okay. And I think there's still hard CDs around of that, and it's for sure available as downloads, and Pile Up, from time to time I've just locally had some CDs of that, but I really need to do a remaster on that and do a reissue, if you will, of the CD. So that one's not really available. Okay. But for sure, Axeman Cometh is available as well as Heatwave.
And again,
I've got a lot of stuff on YouTube on my YouTube channel just under my name.
Okay, we'll go check that out. And see, again, I'm a guy who grew up in the 70s and 80s, and so when I seen the video of your latest single, just listening to that track, it took me back to a lot of those great guitar players from the 80s, and that 80s was a great time to grow up as far as hard rock music, because almost every band would have what you call a guitar hero. I kind of miss that. A lot of bands, they kind of make a point, we're not gonna we don't do guitar solos. I'm like, why not? And and that's why I kind of dig the fact that you made the decision on Heatwave. We're not just going to release an instrumental album. We'll do four great instrumental tracks, and we'll have 4 vocal tracks. So that right there shows me there's a little bit of something on there for everybody to check out, and a little something different.
I really appreciate that, and of course, just having the opportunity to get the music out there a little bit and have it heard. It's great that people are digging it, and guys like you that listen to a lot of different stuff, and you probably have a pretty good frame of reference. If it's catching your ear, then that's killer, because that's what I think about it. I mean, I think it's pretty good, and I think it's.
And the best compliment I can give you, man, is I listen to I watch a video, I listen to the track, and I'm like, I was just impressed. It blew my mind. I'm like, man, why haven't I heard of this guy? Where have they been hiding him? You know?
Nice. Well, yeah, that's why I got Chip on my team.
Yeah.
We're working on that.
And so what's been the response like since you put out the video, and and people are starting to hear Heat Wave? You've been getting a good response?
I mean, really, really good. I've gotten already a number, I don't know, at least 4 or 5, maybe more now, that are already published. Some just really, really great reviews. I'm on, I don't know, I know I'm on at least 3 or 4 different internet radio stations.
Wow.
and in their rotation, and I've done some other on-air, interviews with some guys. So yeah, there's definitely people getting behind it, starting to sell a few more CDs.
That's great, and
online, just here in the last, week or two, since a lot of this stuff's been getting out there, and the YouTube views are picking up. So yeah, I mean, people are really digging it, and I mean, it's awesome. My plan here in general, and it's not all totally put in place yet, but hopefully by probably the end of the year, or for sure right after the first of the year, I should have a whole lineup in place that might involve Carson coming over from Germany, or I might have another singer here that I'll be working with that'll be singing his stuff. But we're looking to get out and get in front of some bands, and I think Chip's all on board of helping make that happen and everything. So,
well, that's great.
We're really trying to get it moving here.
I really hope that comes to tuition. Now, let me ask you. In the past, have you done live shows live solo shows to support your solo releases?
I've done instrumental, obviously not this stuff, just the new vocal stuff, but I've done actually instrumental shows.
Okay.
A few different times. When I first did Pile Up, I played the instrumental shows then, and then actually my band, Electric Sky, that was kind of a Hendrixy band, but it was all pretty much original material that I was doing, and I actually did the singing on that. But, but we did a good batch of openers for bands like Blue Oyster Cult.
Oh wow! And, what was that like? And that's
and stuff like that, and those shows always, people love that, and I would get on a bill like that in front of a major act, and people would always say, "Oh, you guys are just as good as the headliner,"
That's amazing. That's amazing. Now, and that shows too the fact that you're kind of a metal hard rock guy. Fact that you can get a gig opening for a band like 38 Special and then Blue Oyster Cult. That's 2 very different ends of a musical spectrum, but that's got to be a great opportunity for you to get your music out to different types of audiences.
Yeah, and with my cover band ESP, we've just in the last year, we did a couple shows like that with Slaughter, and another one with 38 Special, and so I've done quite a few over the years. Bigger shows like that, one way or the other, and then have performed the original stuff live. At different points. The last time I was doing the all instrumental stuff was about 2011 or 2012, and was doing the stuff off the Axeman Cometh and a couple of the instrumental tunes that are on Heat Wave. I was doing then, and so I've got out there. I've done it enough that seems to me like people always like it, and it goes over pretty well.
And now, and when you were doing the instrumental shows, were you doing it as a one man band where you were just up there on stage yourself, or did you have a backing band with you?
Most of those times it was with a full band.
Oh, okay.
Although I've done a few shows and some local TV appearances and stuff like that where I use backing tracks, and then I'm just playing by myself with the backing tracks.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. I've seen type of guitar type shows like that. I thought it's kind of different, but a cool type of thing. So that's why I asked. And now, as far as instrumental, have you ever released like an instructional video or given thought to doing something like that down the line?
I'm definitely up for doing more instructional stuff one way or the other. I teach regularly, and maybe not always what you might call full-time, but my student load typically ranges between 20 and 30 students a week.
And do you teach them like individually, or do you have them all? Like, do you have a bunch of them come at a time, or like? Those
are typically private lessons.
Okay. And do they personally like come to your place, or is this done online?
I teach, at a local store, and then I sometimes teach out of my home studio, and then, let's see, probably in about 2000, I don't know, maybe 2001 or so, I started a website called GuitarLessonOnline.com.
Okay.
And actually, at the time, it was one of the very first websites that had streaming video guitar lessons.
How cool is that?
Like
Wow.
multimedia, kind of guitar lessons, like with Flash animation and stuff like that. And of course, even at that time, and certainly shortly thereafter, there was so much stuff available for free that at one point there were subscriptions, and I made some revenue off of it, but it ended up being a free site. But so I've actually done a fair amount of instructional material one way or the other, and I teach lessons. So yeah, I'm kind of hoping that one thing that that maybe comes out of all this is maybe I get an opportunity to do a little bit more sort of instructional type stuff.
And that's great. That must be a great feeling as a musician yourself, having the opportunity to not only inspire but kind of like teach your technique, teach your your art or what you will, whatever you want to think of it. But that's got to be a great feeling to be able to teach these up and coming musicians.
Yeah, I enjoy teaching a lot, and my family has a lot of teachers in it, so I'm like the wild rock guitarist, but I'm still a teacher.
And how cool is it for your students? Like not only that they come to and are taught by you, but then they get a chance maybe to listen to one of your CDs and wow, this guy, listen to what he does. That's pretty impressive. He's more than just a guitar teacher. He's actually lived the life.
Right, and I think that's important that whether it's kids or because I teach a lot of kids and adult students, but I think that's important that that they see me or whoever they would be taking lessons from, doing something with it. If you take lessons from a guy and he's a good guitar teacher and that's all he does and doesn't record or play publicly or whatever, what does it mean at that point?
Yeah.
The way I look at it is, if all you do is I tell my students this, if all you do is play by yourself, it's kind of like playing basketball in your driveway. It doesn't really matter how good you are then.
Yeah.
What happens when you get in the game with other people?
So
I think that's good.
Let me ask you, Lou. Now, you mentioned it's been a while since you released anything. The last official release was 2011. So I was just kind of curious, what did you do during the downtime?
Well, ESP was going strong for years, and in 2008, I took a break from live performing because at that point I was playing
all the time.
I don't know, 120 or 100 gigs a year for years, for 15 years or more. I've been basically doing that.
Wow.
And so I was still teaching and I was still writing and recording, and around 2010 or so is when I started to get the heat wave stuff going the first time. A few of the tunes started to come together then, and then I did the Christmas release. But that was also right around the time when my daughter was born.
Oh, okay.
And then we moved, and moved to a different house in the more or less the same general area.
Kind of life.
So between all of that, I started doing gigs again, and I had about a 2.5-year layoff from gigs.
Wow.
And during that time, besides teaching guitar, I was also shilling dogs professionally.
Oh, wow. Wow. So you lived quite the life now. And now let me ask you.
Different life at that point. But anyway, so then I got the instrumental group together, and we did some instrumental shows, and then that kind of morphed back into ESP and whatnot. So I started the recording of this in October of last year of 2016, but for about 5 years leading up to that, I was playing real heavily. I was doing 120, 130 days a year, mostly cover band dates, and then kind of getting a little bit of the original material formulated. But actually, what was really the catalyst that kind of really got me moving and with a better sense of focus is when I got a little bit more involved talking with Ross, the boss, and the people involved with him that really started kind of helping me out and giving me some good consultation and so forth. And so then, at that point, I was starting to get like some really nice feedback from real people in the industry, and I was like, maybe if I kind of get my act together here, I can make something happen. And so it's all kind of going pretty well.
Oh, that's great. Now, I want to ask you about Ross the Boss. I was curious, was our mutual friend Chip that kind of hooked you up with him?
No, it's actually kind of funny. Probably in about 2012, maybe 2013, just out of the blue, I was like, hey, I'll look up Ross Boss on Facebook,
Yeah.
And so I found his Facebook page, and I sent him a friend request, and I was always a pretty good general fan of the early Manowar stuff, the first 4 or 5 albums, and he was on the first 6, so I didn't even really stick it out quite that long as far as when I was getting their records or whatever. But, I was a pretty big fan. I remember kind of digging him. And so it was just totally on a whim. I was like, oh, wow, I'll check him out. So he accepts my friend request, and I sent him a message that said, hey, Ross, always been a big fan. Thanks for having me. Keep rocking. And then he sends me back a message that says, that's the plan.
Wow.
And so then we were just like Facebook friends, and we kind of developed a little bit of a rapport, and maybe we just had some jokes back and forth and Messenger or whatever. But I certainly didn't plan on it, and I never thought about asking him for help or whatever. Well, anyways, then this lady that works with him and his agent John Pettygrass, she saw a video of me. Didn't know anything about me, or that I was, an unknown, essentially. Knew that I was friends with Ross, and, sends me a message that says, this is phenomenal, what's up with you, do you have an agent and all this stuff? And I'm like, well, no. So then we started talking on the phone, and she's like, look, Ross thinks you're really good. She gets me in touch with him via the phone. Which especially at first, I was super nervous.
What a dream come true! Wow.
But anyway, so it was just kind of one of those weird things. And he was, of course, real gracious, and he'd seen the video or two of me or whatever, and so they kind of helped me. Develop a little bit more focus about what I wanted to do, and even at that point, I hadn't thought I was going to ask him to play on it or whatever. That all just sort of kind of came along as things sort of fell into place or whatever. But But yeah, so it's another, it's kind of one of those sort of weird.
Wow, how cool is that?
Circumstances, you know. So yeah, so that's kind of what really set the ball in motion, and then that was, you know, kind of right around the time when I started to get hooked up with Karsten, and then Lori also set me up with Mike LaPon from Symphony X.
Wow.
So yeah, it was just kind of one of those things.
Well, you know,
and all of a sudden, you know, I'm like talking to Ross on the phone about, you know, recording my record, and you know.
I gotta say, you know, for an up and coming unknown guy, I don't think you're gonna be unknown much longer. I mean, I gotta tell you, the last week or two, I've been seeing a lot of stuff about you just on the internet, you know, all over Facebook and stuff. So I think it's great that you're hooked up with all these, you know, great people. Now, as far as Ross, I understand he appears on the album. Does he appear on just one track or a couple of the tracks?
Ross just plays on the one tune, and we do like the solo section. We like trade, you know, leads back and forth, and then we play the harmony together, and then I go off into the other harmony, and he plays the outro lead. So yeah, it's kind of some nice dual guitar work the way that came together, and so yeah, so he's just on the one tune, and then Mike LaPon plays bass on 3 tunes. He's on the song Blood on the Cross with Ross, and then he's on one of the instrumentals, and then also on my cover of the Michael Schenker instrumental, Into the Arena.
Wow. And as far as, have you guys thought about maybe you and Ross doing a video together for that song? Because that'd be kind of a cool thing to do, like a video of dueling guitars.
I have a little idea in my head, and you know, I don't know if that'll ever happen or not, but it wouldn't be probably too hard to put together if we wanted to do it. So yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that come together.
Well, good luck with that. Now, as far as the recording, like, were you guys in the actual same studio, or did you record your parts separately and then put it all together?
No, it was done, you know, remotely, and of course that's the way the vocals were done since Karsten was in Germany. Yeah. But it's funny because I've been doing that, just recording like stuff with guys here in town. You know, you know, a guy living across town, but you know, he sent me the track and I record here. You know, and so actually that. You know, that worked really well, and everybody else was used to doing it that way too. You know, and so that worked really well. And then the other nice thing about all that was Karsten is the one that hooked me up with Rolf Monks, who mixed and mastered the record also in Germany.
Oh wow, and, amazing!
Rolf's got a really well-regarded studio over there. You know, already this year. He's like recorded stuff for Michael Schenker's album, and like recorded with like Francis Buchholz of the Scorpions.
Wow.
You know, he's done stuff with like guys from like Black Sabbath and Rainbow, and you know, he's like really well established over there. And so to have him working on the final mix and master was just you know, just a really incredible opportunity, and it really was like the icing on the cake as far as the final sound and stuff on the album. So yeah, it was just a great batch of people to work with, and I'm sure that I'll probably work with everybody involved again for sure. You know, everybody's down with it, you know. That's
so great. Now, in regards to Heatwave, I was curious, were these all the songs that are on the CD? Was any of this like older material you had laying around, or was it all new material that was specifically written for the album?
Some of it was older. Full Throttle I had written a while back and had performed that live like in 2011, 2012. The tunes Blood on the Cross and Let Me Hear You Scream, those are, besides being new tunes, those I wrote all the lyrics and wrote the vocal parts and everything for The Meeting and When All Is Lost. Those were both older instrumentals that I had kind of always thought would work as a vocal tune, and so Karsten wrote the lyrics for those, you know, with some framework that I had with the melody or whatever, and the titles of both the songs were the same as what they were as an instrumental. A few of them were a little bit older that were reworked, but let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I guess 4 of them were. Yeah, 4 of them were brand new, and then 1 would be full throttle,
Okay.
and then the other 2 would be the reworked ones that ended up being vocal tunes, and then of course the Schenker tunes. So that's the 8 tunes that are on there. So a little bit of both.
Okay.
But I got some more stuff ready to go. There was one other song that I almost put on it, but mostly for just wanting to get things wrapped up and whatnot. I ended up just leaving it to 8 songs, but yeah, I'm actually kind of itching to get some more stuff done. I don't know if I can have a whole record done by next fall, but probably pretty close.
Well, I think people.
I generally work pretty fast once I get things rolling.
Yeah, and a lot of people, are just starting to get into albums. So I think people are really going to be checking this out for a while. So I think you got time to work on some new music. But I think people are really starting to dig this, and so I think you got some
that's cool, man. And I appreciate the opportunity to have people like you get interested in it, and just everything that.
See, that's a great thing about the internet. I mean, you could really market yourself, and a lot of stuff that I've never even heard of. I just discover online, which is a great thing. I think in many ways the record industry really screwed themselves over years ago. I mean, let's be honest, the record industry isn't what it once was. I mean, a lot of kids today, they don't even know what a record, let alone a record store is. A lot of, Los Angeles, where I live, the only place really pretty much they purchase CDs is either online at Amazon or your local Best Buy. That's about it. A lot of these kids don't even know what a record is, which is a very sad thing in my mind. I'm an old school guy. I like to actually have something to hold in my hand, look at the artwork. So I got to say, Lou, that's one thing I really I got respect for guys like you. Not only that because of your huge talent, but because a lot of bands and musicians, let's be honest, people aren't buying music like they used to. So a lot of these bands and musicians today are under the assumption, well, you know what? Okay, since records nobody's really buying records. We'll just live off. We'll go and perform live. We'll live off catalog music we got. We're not going to write or release any new music. So I really dig not only that you got the huge talent that you got, but that you continue to release and record new music. I think that's a really cool thing.
This record is for sure the most, professional effort, both in terms of, the personnel and the quality of the final product and everything, that I've done. But, a lot of the trappings of that, it's still, me recording my songs one way or the other, like I've been doing, for 30 years.
Yeah.
I don't know. I actually was saying something to my wife the other day about, it'd be pretty easy to, just teach and play cover gigs and make a living and that would be that. But, I have a genuine
love for what you do.
Fire in the belly, to play and record music, and then it's recorded. Hopefully somebody else likes it as much as I do,
Yeah, that's the whole point. And I think, too, the cool thing about releasing your own music as opposed to being hooked up with a label, being hooked up with a label is great in the sense that, you get a little more maybe financial backing, but at the same token, if, your album doesn't, sell a million copies or whatever right out the gates, by the second week it's out, the record company is either ready to drop you or they forget all about you. Whereas since, you're out there pushing your own music, I think you got much more of an investment in doing so, and you'll get it out there a lot better than, say, a typical record label. And also, if album sells and does really well, you don't have to necessarily share or split the profits with anybody. It goes all back into your pocket, and rightfully so.
Yes, hopefully there'll be some of those profits one of these days.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing too is getting hooked up with Chip. Chip used to be an A&R guy.
Yeah.
When there were real record labels with A&R guys, and a lot of the stuff that he's helping me with now, that's what an A&R guy for a label would have done, but there's not really labels now, and even what the way they are, they don't have a budget, they're not, supporting, the artists the way they did before. So, at least I'm working with somebody that knows, that knows what's going on. I mean, I think I'm really fortunate to.
I really think he's a great.
Hooked up with him. And that all came as a referral from Ross's agent. Ross's agent called Chip and gave him the scoop on me, and then Chip and I, arranged a phone call, and I'm sitting in the bathroom of a muffler shop getting my car worked on, and Chip's going, I work with Glenn Tippett and Richie Faulkner and Michael Schenker. I can't believe I've never heard anything that you've done before,
Exactly. Well, he had kind of had the same impression but Chip's probably one of the greatest connections I've made over the years. He gets me a lot of great, musicians to interview, a lot of great musicians and bands. He'd worked, I know, over years from everyone from, Tony Iommi to, Quiet Riot, like you said, Judas Priest. So you got a great guy there on your side.
List is crazy.
Yeah. So, Lou, before we wrap this up, are you currently involved with any other projects, or is Heatwave your main project you're working on right now?
Well, as far as original music, that's the main thing. Gigging, like I said, I've got my little variety duo, and that sounds like a whole band because we use drum machine, and then we've got acoustic, and I play electric guitar, and we both sing a little bit, so that's actually a neat little variety act, and we do everything. We do corporate events, we do bars, restaurants, public events, so that's real versatile, and we work all the time. So I'm always gigging, with that, and then I've got a little bit more of a traditional bar band, a little trio with the great bass player singer guy. That's just called the Dibello McBride Band, and we do everything from ZZ Top to Montrose.
Wow. Well, if you're, hey, let me ask you, Lou.
I just get to cut loose all night on that stuff, and so I'm always doing that, and then like I said, hopefully here right around the end of the year or after the first of the year, we'll be getting some more legit kind of opening spots and maybe a couple of little tour legs or something.
Oh, that would be great to really get you out there a lot more for people to see. Now, just a couple more questions now. In regards to, talk a little bit about, obviously you're a Michael Schenker fan, but talk about deciding to do that track in the arena.
How did I decide?
Yeah, I mean, I guess out of all the Michael Schenker tunes, was that your favorite, or was that the first thing?
Well, that's a tune that I always liked a lot, and then when I was playing out live in 2011, 2012, doing instrumental stuff, I was playing it then.
Oh, wow.
And I had also I found a backing track of it one time that had the bass and keyboards and drums, and I recorded my own version of it, mostly just for fun at the time.
Yeah.
But it always went really well, and it just kind of seemed like it would be kind of a good one to do as a cover. It's a tune that a lot of people like and recognize, and just seemed like it would be a good fit. So that's how that came about.
And of course, I know when you cover somebody's material, you got to pay a license fee. But have you heard anything back? Found out if Michael Schenker's heard it or anything yet?
No, but Chip said something about sending him a copy. So
I don't know if he's done that yet or not. that would really be cool. Like I said, you got the connection right there. So if he says he's going to make it happen, I almost guarantee it will. So
right. That's what everybody says. At least so my feeling is pretty good about that.
Well, hey, talk about your dream come true. That's great. And now, and as far as writing the tunes, I imagine as far as your instrumental stuff, a lot of that starts off with the typical riff or maybe you go in and just record a jam or stuff. But how different is it for you as an instrumental player, but does that instrumental music, to go in and write lyrics? I mean, you said it's something you've done, but would you say it's a totally different songwriting approach for you, or does it lyrics?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly different in the fact that the lyric writing ends up being a part of it. Most of my instrumental stuff, and by design, I write with a kind of like a vocal tune format in mind, so there's a pretty identifiable verse and a chorus and whatnot. And, really where my inspiration, and like if you look at Pile Up as my first all-instrumental record, at that time, a lot of people sort of assumed, especially even just my friends and whatever, people around here, sort of assumed that I was like, influenced like a whole bunch by like Joe Satriani or something like that. But really, where my real influence for instrumental music comes is from listening to jazz artists. Before I even got into rock guitar. Wow. And so, I was super familiar with all kinds of, George Benson and sax players like Tom Scott and Grover Washington and all those kind of guys. And so then when I started doing, instrumental music, I mean, I just knew, well, there's this part that's like a verse, and there's the chorus part that's the hooky part that you remember, whether it's got a lyric or not, and so, a lot of times for the instrumental stuff, I'll start off, kind of like you said, maybe there's a certain riff or some kind of rhythm figure or something, but then I'm thinking, to structure it like a vocal tune, so it's like, well, is this going to be the verse or the chorus, and so on. And then the difference with vocal tunes, especially for me, is that almost always when I write a vocal tune, I hear whatever the chorus is, a phrase or whatever, whether it's Blood on the Cross or Let Me Hear You Scream or whatever, I hear that pretty fully formed in my head, and then usually what I do is I'll, sit down with the guitar and sing the melody of the vocal hook and figure out what the chords that I'm hearing behind it are, if I don't sort of automatically know. And then once I have the hook figured out and I have the riff for the hook and I have the key worked out, it typically is pretty easy for me to put the rest of the tune together. Okay. And even the lyrics at that point usually tend to kind of fall into place, if by the time I've spent some time thinking about the way the hook sounds and whatever it's about, usually I'm getting some ideas, for the lyrics. Every now and then, maybe you get stuck on one certain line, or are you going to write a third verse or repeat the first verse or whatever? But so it tends to come together pretty naturally once I get kind of the foundation laid.
Yeah, because to me, even like when I listen to, let's say, instrumental music, and listen to an instrumental track, a lot of that to me is based a lot more on your emotion, maybe when you're creating the song, and then you listen to a vocal track. A lot of times, like like when I listen to vocal tracks, I'm paying attention to the words, the lyrics, and kind of, if it's a really good song or a song that I'm really into, it's because the guy, is telling a story while he's singing the song. So how much thought are you putting into like telling a story, or like when you write out the lyrics, do you think, okay, the words have to kind of have a meaning, they kind of have to tell a story? I mean, how much do you get into that when you're writing vocals?
I mean, I haven't spent enough time writing so many vocal tunes that, I really, spend a lot of time, I guess, analyzing it that way. Yeah. But I definitely make the lyric, whether you call it telling a story or having a logical kind of flow,
or just a flow, yeah.
That's definitely something that I think about, and I try to have it not be too random. Yeah, for sure.
Because I mean, it depends again on the music, the song, the artist. I mean, you even take a classic rock song like "Jump" by Van Halen. You listen to the lyrics; they don't really. A lot of the words it's a bunch of gibberish and nonsense, but it's a great sounding tune,
Right.
So again, it just kind of depends on what you're...
Of course, it is David Lee Roth, so
Yeah.
he gets away with a little bit more.
Yeah.
but another person that's like that in a way is Steven Tyler.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Where some of the lyrics are, kind of a little nonsensical or whatever.
Yeah.
And, I think maybe... although I found Carson's lyric writing to kind of be real compatible with my perspective.
And that's what matters, yeah.
I think maybe they're, depending on the personality of the vocalist, you look at a David Lee Roth or a Steven Tyler, those guys kind of get away with that.
Because it works for him, like you said,
kind of approach, and then you look at Rob Halford or James Hetfield, and their whole presentation is like more serious or whatever, and so I think that kind of goes along with the kind of the feel of the sound, whatever the band or the artist involved. I think that probably has a lot to do with that.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting. You were telling me that one of your earlier influences, a lot like you, I was alive when Jimi Hendrix was around. I was born the year he passed, but the thing about Jimi that people fail to realize is, even years after his passing, people still listen to his music. And the amazing thing about it is a lot of his stuff has been reissued, and like you say, and you get different recordings and studio versions of songs, but he didn't really leave he didn't have a huge catalog of music when he died. And the guy made such a huge impact, though. And I mean, besides being able to play guitar, he could sing his own, he could sing lead on his own tracks. The guy was a showman. He played the guitar on his back. He set his guitars on fire. He'd play the guitar with his teeth. I mean, this guy was a showman.
Yeah, and that was a big part of what of what got me, right early on, with watching, the footage of him performing. He had command of the instrument, he had command of the stage, he had command of the audience, and I think that's what everybody, that's what you want when you're playing guitar,
And see,
you want to have it all right there at your fingertips,
And see, that's why when you do instrumental music, or even you're an instrumental performer and you get up on stage, you got to do more than just stand there on the stage in one spot and and give us a real powerful shred fest. I mean, you got to be a little bit of a showman. So when you're performing, Lou, like you make a point of being a bit of a showman up there on stage.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I don't know. Have you seen the little 30-second promo clip that has the live video in it?
No, I'll have to go check that out. Is that on your Facebook page?
Yeah, I think I got you on Facebook now, don't I?
Yeah. I hit you up.
Maybe I'll send you a couple of links there. There's some good some good live footage out there. But I definitely make that a part of the performance, or it is naturally a part of my performance.
That's great. And like I said, the best compliment I can give you, Lou, is until Chip hooked me up with interviewing you for this album Heatwave, I never heard of you. And then I went and checked out the latest video for your single, and just based on the one video and track, I'm like, wow, this guy is very impressive, just based on this one track. And you got a new fan of me. I'm like, one thing I plan to do is not only get the Heatwave album, but I want to check out some of your other stuff. And what I'd like to do is, when I've had a chance to hear the Heatwave album, is maybe in a month or two, like do a follow-up interview to specifically talk about the album, a little more, so we could spread the love a little more. Because I think you're definitely somebody that more people need to know about, the huge talent that is you, Lou.
Well, I mean, I mean, I really appreciate that. That's great to hear. And yeah, by all means, give it a couple of good listens and let me know. And yeah, I'd be happy to talk to you again anytime.
Okay, well, I know your time is precious. It's getting late where you are, so thanks so much, Lou. I really enjoyed talking to you, getting to know you a little better. We will do this again, and I'll be sure to let Chip know when this goes up. And once it gets posted, feel free to post an interview on all your sites, because the more people see it, that's what we want.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure I do that to the point of annoying people, but
that's what it's all about, getting the word out. So you take care, my friend, and I'll be in touch. Thanks so much.
Jason, appreciate it. We'll talk to you again.
Okay,
Thank
bye-bye.
you very much.